Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to start with a truly bizarre hypothetical. Like, picture this, right? Imagine you've somehow racked up this staggering debt, let's say, I don't know, $10 billion because you forgot a parking ticket for like 50 years. So the logical next step for you is obviously go to the government and ask them to pass one tiny little law that just makes all parking tickets like disappear forever.
It sounds completely absurd, doesn't it? But what's really fascinating, or maybe alarming, is that this kind of thing, this total legal do-over, well, it's basically what some huge chemical companies are trying to pull off right now.
Seriously.
Yeah, seriously. They're lobbying like really hard for this small but incredibly powerful addition to a big bill. It's just one section, Section 453.
Okay, so that's what we're diving into today, this proposed legal shield. And it's not just about, one product they regret. This is about giving chemical companies sweeping legal immunity, like protection from lawsuits tied to chemical exposure.
Right. We're talking the whole range, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, the lot.
So our mission here is to figure out, well, why now? Why are they so desperate for this protection right now? What does it actually cover? And, what's the real cost, the hidden cost behind that whole cheap food story they tell us?
And you kind of have to start with the big number that really got this whole ball rolling, the $10 billion problem.
Ah, okay. That number rings a bell. That's Bayer, right? After they bought Monsanto. And the product causing all the trouble was Roundup, glyphosate.
Exactly that. That whole saga, the Roundup lawsuits, that's the legal precedent that basically put the fear of God, or maybe the fear of courts, into the entire industry.
Because the scale of those lawsuits was just massive, wasn't it? Linking glyphosate exposure to, what was it, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yeah, primarily that. And the financial hit for Bayer was just catastrophic. They ended up settling a huge batch of those initial cases for around, $10 billion.
Right.
I mean, that's a figure that just completely changes how you think about selling a product in the U.S. market.
10 billion. And it didn't even stop there, did it? I remember reading there are still how many ongoing cases?
Get this. Well over 165,000 ongoing cancer lawsuits still working their way through the system right now.
Wow. Okay, yeah. You can definitely see why a company might start feeling a bit existentially panicked facing that kind of liability.
Exactly. And the threat is so real that the company's own leadership has been pretty blunt about it.
Yeah.
The CEO basically said that facing these ongoing, potentially endless lawsuits makes it financially unsustainable to keep selling Roundup here. Unless they get this legal immunity. That's the explicit trade-off they're presenting.
Yeah.
Give us immunity, or we might have to pull the product from the U.S. market.
So their solution isn't, reformulate the product or maybe just add a stronger warning label? Nope.
Nope. The solution is Section 453. It's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. And crucially, it's not just for Bayer and Roundup. It's designed to protect all chemical companies in this space, whether they're based here or overseas.
Okay, and how exactly does it work? What's the mechanism? You said it targets failure to warn claims.
Yes, and that is the absolute key part. Section 453 would essentially throw out almost all future lawsuits based on that specific legal argument, failure to warn.
Let's pause there for a second, because failure to warn, that sounds important. What does that actually mean in this context, and why is getting rid of it such a perfect shield for these companies?
Okay, so think about it from the perspective of someone who got sick, maybe a farmer or a gardener, using these chemicals regularly. Their legal options are already pretty limited. The product, like Roundup, is approved by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. So you can't really sue saying the product itself is illegal because the government agency says it's okay to sell.
Right. The EPA approval kind of shields them from that.
It does. And you generally can't sue them for being negligent in how they designed the chemical either, again, because of that regulatory stamp of approval.
So what's left? How can people seek damages if they believe the chemical made them sick?
The main path, often the only viable path left, is this failure to warn claim. It basically means arguing that the company knew or should have known about certain risks associated with the chemical, maybe risks revealed by newer science, but they didn't adequately warn the users about those specific dangers on the label or elsewhere.
Ah, okay. So even if the EPA approved it years ago, if new evidence shows a danger, the company still had a duty to warn people about that new evidence.
Precisely. But if Section 453 passes, it eliminates that specific legal avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't matter if groundbreaking research comes out tomorrow proving a definite link to cancer or some neurological issue.
Yeah.
If you try to sue based on the company failing to warn you about that new risk, Your lawsuit could just be dismissed right away, preemptively blocked.
Wow, that's incredibly cynical. It feels like it just completely cuts the public off from holding companies accountable, even if they knew about dangers and didn't tell anyone.
It really does. It preempts justice before it can even start, based on future knowledge.
And the way they're trying to sell this like legal nuke, it's got to be wrapped in something nice, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's classic political maneuvering. They're not running ads saying, help us avoid paying for cancer lawsuits. No, they wrap this tiny, super powerful section in this big, wholesome narrative about supporting our farmers and making sure we don't all starve to death.
Ah, the fear tactic. Give us immunity, or food prices will skyrocket, right? Prepare for $10 bread.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
It's meant to scare people into accepting this immunity as necessary for survival, while completely ignoring the other side of the equation.
Which nicely brings us to the part of this whole story that just makes you want to, I don't know, throw your hands up. The secrecy loophole that kind of lets this whole mess keep going.
Right. This is a point that really needs to sink in for people. The vast majority, we're talking over 70% of the actual safety studies on these thousands of chemicals, they're considered confidential business information.
Wait, confidential?
Yes. And here's the kicker. They are owned by the chemical companies themselves.
Get out. Seriously. The data that's supposed to prove whether something is safe to spray all over our food supply or whether it might cause diseases, most of that data is basically the private property of the companies selling the chemical.
That's the situation. They commission the studies, they own the raw data, and they typically only provide summaries or the conclusions they want regulators, like the EPA, to see. The full details often stay hidden.
That is just mind-boggling. I mean, it's like asking the guy selling you a really sketchy used car to also be the mechanic who writes the official safety report for it.
Yeah.
And he assures you it's perfectly safe, totally roadworthy, but he keeps all the detailed inspection notes locked away in his desk drawer. You just get the thumbs up.
That's actually a pretty good analogy.
And then they wonder why there's a trust issue.
Exactly. And this secrecy, this control over the data, it fuels the whole industry spin machine.
Yeah.
You see these front groups pop up with very friendly, farmer-focused names, like the Modern Ag Alliance.
Right, I've seen those. And their message is usually pretty slick, pretty simple.
Oh yeah, they've got it down. The main line is usually something like, when weeds win, we all lose. They position glyphosate and chemicals like it as absolutely essential. The backbone of modern farming, keeping crop yields high, keeping food prices low, preventing famine.
Okay, so that's the argument. Accept the risks, whatever they may be, because the alternative is unaffordable food.
That's the trade-off they present. We need these chemicals for cheap food. But if you actually start to compare that supposed cost saving, maybe a few cents cheaper on your cornflakes with the other costs, the math starts to look very different.
You mean the costs the public ends up paying anyway?
Precisely. The massive public health costs. We're talking billions spent on treatments for cancers, for neurological diseases like Parkinson's, for fertility issues, for all sorts of chronic conditions that research is increasingly linking to long-term exposure to these chemicals.
And it's not just some fringe theory, is it? I mean, haven't major health organizations weighed in on glyphosate specifically?
Absolutely. Key bodies, including committees within the World Health Organization, have classified glyphosate as a probable human carcinogen. That's a serious designation.
So the argument that we need this stuff to save money on food kind of falls apart when you realize we're likely paying way more later in healthcare costs, right? The cost just gets shifted on to us, the public, and onto the healthcare system.
Exactly. It's an externalized cost. The company saves money or avoids liability, and the public picks up the tab down the line through illness and medical bills.
And connecting this back to the proposed law, Section 453, the sheer scope of what it's trying to shield is it's staggering. It's not just Roundup we're talking about.
Not even close.
Give us the number again. How many different chemicals would get this liability shield?
57,000.
Yeah.
570000. Different chemical products.
57,000. Okay, let that sink in. That's basically everything, isn't it? Pretty much every pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, insecticide currently used, all the ossicides, as one source put it.
It's incredibly comprehensive. It's designed as blanket protection for virtually the entire agricultural chemical industry's product lines.
Wow. And the science linking exposure to these chemicals, maybe not just one, but the cumulative effect of many to health problems is getting stronger, isn't it?
It really is. The links are becoming much clearer, much harder to ignore. We're seeing strong correlations not just with various cancers and ALS, but also with Parkinson's disease and really worryingly with fertility problems.
Yeah, the fertility stuff is particularly scary. You mentioned endocrine disruption. What does that mean in plain English?
So your endocrine system is basically your body's hormone messaging network. It controls growth, metabolism, reproduction, mood, pretty much everything. Endocrine disruptors are chemicals that interfere with that system. They can mimic hormones, block them, or just generally mess up the signals. It's like throwing static into your body's internal communication lines.
And glyphosate is implicated in this.
Yes. Studies have actually found glyphosate accumulating in human semen, and it's been linked to measurable decreases in testosterone levels. The damage seems quite systemic. It impacts our gut microbiome, which is fundamental to health, and there's growing evidence of impacts on brain development and neurological function too.
Okay, so the science is pointing towards significant risks across a huge range of chemicals, which makes the role of the regulators even more critical, right? The EPA is supposed to protect us from this stuff.
You would think so. That's their mandate.
But there's a plot twist involving the EPA, isn't there? Their reaction seems off.
That's putting it mildly.
Mhm.
The agency that's literally named the Environmental Protection Agency seems to be, well, dragging its feet, maybe intentionally.
Right. I read this incredible story, this anecdote about researchers presenting really damning evidence on endocrine disruption directly to the EPA's Office of Pesticide Programs. Clear data showing potential harm to reproductive health.
And the response from the EPA,
Basically, a shrug. According to the source, they listened politely, said thank you very much, showed zero shock or urgency, and just walked away.
wow.
It sounds less like environmental protection and more like calculated indifference. Or maybe waiting for something.
That's exactly the perception. It feels very calculated. Right now, the EPA is apparently dragging its heels on several court orders that actually require them to reevaluate the safety of glyphosate based on the latest science.
They're refusing court orders.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
Delaying, stalling. And the suspicion is that they're essentially waiting, hoping that Congress will pass this immunity shield, Section 453, before they have to take any real action on glyphosate. They seem to be hoping Congress will just make the problem disappear for them, legislatively speaking, let them off the hook.
That's the textbook definition of regulatory capture, isn't it? The agency protecting the industry instead of the public.
It certainly looks that way in this instance.
So, okay, let's say the worst happens. This bill passes, Section 453 becomes law, and these companies get blanket immunity for 57,000 chemicals. Is there any way back from that? Any legal recourse left?
Honestly, the short answer is probably no. This liability shield is designed to cut off the main pathway the public has used to force accountability. Historically, suing the companies, or even suing the EPA itself to force it to act, has been the only effective tool. If the companies are immune from lawsuits about failure to warn, that tool is gone. The main incentive for them to change their behavior or for the EPA to tighten regulations just evaporates.
So reversing this later would be, what, next to impossible?
It would likely require something truly extraordinary, like an absolutely massive, unprecedentedly loud, nationwide public outcry. We're talking about a level of collective action that genuinely makes elected officials fear for their jobs if they don't act. Anything less than that kind of political earthquake, and that immunity shield probably stays put.
Because we're up against an incredibly powerful, incredibly well-funded lobby, right? The agricultural chemical lobby has billions behind it.
Enormous resources, which means just knowing about this isn't enough. If you want your voice heard over the sound of all that money pushing for Section 453, you have to actively participate.
Right. Knowledge is great, but action is what counts here. It can't be passive.
Exactly. You have to actually do something to be part of the counterpressure.
Okay, so let's talk practical steps. What can people actually do right now? Based on what we've seen, there seem to be a few key actions.
3 main things come up consistently.
Okay, step 1. Call your elected reps, your senator, your congressperson, and be specific. Tell them you want them to oppose any legislative language in any bill that grants legal immunity to chemical companies. Mention Section 453 if you can. Make it clear.
Good. Step 2. Keep an eye on your state level too. This isn't just a federal fight. Sometimes similar immunity bills get quietly introduced in state legislatures. So check what's happening locally.
Right, state action matters. And finally, step 3. Connect with the organizations already fighting this. There are established environmental and public health groups actively working against this legislation. They often have easy tools on their websites to help you contact your officials, sign petitions, stay informed. It makes it easier to be persistent.
And persistence is key. Because if we don't collectively make a loud enough noise, we're basically giving silent consent. We're agreeing to let companies off the hook for potential harm from 57,000 chemicals, no matter what science discovers later.
Which just circles us back to the fundamental absurdity, doesn't it? These companies are apparently so unwilling to do the simplest thing. Just put a clear cancer warning label on a product like Roundup, which would probably satisfy the courts and let them keep selling it.
Right. The warning label itself is a defense against failure to warn.
Exactly. But instead of that simple fix, they'd rather push for this massive, sweeping, total legal immunity for their entire industry, forcing the public to just bear the health costs forever.
And maybe that leaves you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on. When the people who make and sell a product openly state that they literally cannot afford to face the legal consequences of selling that product, what does that tell you, really, about the product itself? And who should ultimately be footing the bill for the cleanup?